Okay. Well, again, welcome everybody. So we're going to talk a little bit today about identity theft protection for the sole entrepreneur, and it's always been an issue, but I think it's just getting worse. So we'll go through. So for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Tim Voigt. I'm a small business specialist for Legal Shield, ID Shield. And so I get to work with small businesses and sole entrepreneurs on really help them protect their business and families with legal identity theft. And so it's an exciting growing company called Legal Shield. And it's really here, people really talk about how this really helps them create a peace of mind for these two products. Go ahead, Brent, introduce yourself.
All right. Well, I know Jessica and Kevin know me, but Mary, I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones. But prior to coming back to this industry, I was in cybersecurity with a cybersecurity company based here in the Twin Cities. And so that background, that it included a lot of incident response. So we were tasked with helping organizations that were under attack. Maybe they experienced malware and they're completely shut down, or they have suspicions that they were under a cyber attack. And so we would go in and figure it out and eradicate the adversary, clean up the environment, protect it, et cetera. We also did a lot of high-level cybersecurity projects for companies, tested their environment, scanned it for vulnerabilities, and I still hold a certification in cybersecurity management.
Which company?
It's called Blue Team Alpha.
Blue Team?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Brent.
Yes.
So let's talk about identity theft protection. So the question to everybody watching this is, what are you doing to protect yourself, your family, and your business? What would happen to your business if an identity theft were to happen to you? And so we know identity theft of your identity usually results in a significant amount of disruption, hassle, and damage to your reputation. So if a business cannot look after its kind of confidential information, it's questionable where it can be trusted with confidential information of its clients. And so most everybody is dealing with some other client, and they may be in their system and dealing with their information. So it's something everybody needs to start thinking about, how they're going to make sure that they don't cause an identity theft issue with their client. So when an issue would arise, who would you call? And it can arise at any time. And how will you feel when presented with an identity theft issue? Well, there's just some things to think about.
Tim, I would also add to that fourth bullet that a lot of people think, and as you're going to go through this, they're going to think about what is it that I might do that would cause my identity to be sacrificed. But that fourth bullet talks about that your information is everywhere. And so you may not be the source of that information getting out there and being used against you. So.
Yep, good point. So let's kind of look at, so if it were to happen, so the FTC estimates that recovering from identity theft takes an average of 6 months to 200 hours of work. And so kind of what is that? So that's estimated on most actual work is identity theft is making phone calls, writing correspondence, keeping track of creditors, responding to letters, working with credit bureaus, law enforcement agency, involving the victims, making sure that they won't be liable for debt, the debts the thieves created in their name. So I don't know about you, but I don't even know where I would start with those phone calls, or I don't want to write correspondence. So just think about that. So go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, so when we talk about identity theft, one of the first things is that people talk about is, I don't think I'm a target, but the reality is whether you're an individual, a business or a small business, which is really the individual, it's not a matter of if, it's really a matter of when. And a lot of people getting back to that whole idea that I'm not a target. On this audience right now, I would imagine that we have all received that text message that obviously is some type of an attempted crime. You've received a phone call, maybe from the IRS, saying that criminal charges are pending unless you call them back. You have probably received an email that you were suspicious or know that it was a phishing scam from PayPal, Windows, Microsoft, Google, LinkedIn, PayPal. Those are some of the more popular brand names. That means you were already a target. So maybe you didn't respond to it because it was overt and you realized that it was, but we need to realize that this is a crime of opportunity. And it's that email that you accidentally click on. Maybe you're rushed, you're preoccupied, you're busy, you're multitasking, or it just looks real and it just hits you at that one particular moment. You click on it and now it starts and you are the target. So again, to say that I'm not a target, if you've received any of these things I just talked about, you were a target, it just wasn't successful. The predominant amount of phishing emails that are created in the world are projected at the United States. Google alone last year says that they have identified 2.1 million specific phishing websites globally, and that list is growing daily. I think it's over 40% of the phishing emails come in as a Microsoft email, a phishing email. So this is real. It's happening every day. And it's just a matter of when.
Yeah. Thanks, Brett. So let's talk a little bit about Legal Shield. So Legal Shield's actually been around for 49 years. And so we're almost, as of beginning of next year, will be 50-year-old company. And so protect 4.4 million lives in the United States and Canada, over 140,000 businesses. And in this case, we have dedicated law firms for the legal side, but we also have IT Shield. So with all the recent breaches, there's a huge problem that everyone's facing, identity theft. Criminals don't want your money, they want your identity. And Brent just really talked about all those different ways. So you really want to shield your family and your business. So, so here's some of the different types of identity thefts that are out there. I'll hit on a couple, and Brent, you can come in here and jump in. So employment. Somebody takes your identity and they applies for a job. Somebody takes your information and applies for unemployment. I've had 2 people in the last month who are in job transition tell me, they're working with the state of Minnesota because somebody already applied for their unemployment. And it just takes a lot of time to get that straightened out. But the thing is, if they did that, they've also done other things too. So it doesn't stop. And medical records, they can take your medical information and go have surgeries, do all these things, and all of a sudden you're going to get the bill. So just every one of these things makes everyone's lives a little bit more difficult. And driver's license, just look at our driver's license, how much information is on there. It's got our birthday, it's got lots of things they can use. And I always tell somebody, if somebody grabs your driver's license, commits a crime, gets pulled over, guess who's going to have a warrant for their arrest? Come knocking at your door. So a lot of these things are like Brent said, there's it's a passion of opportunity. Brent, you
I
want to
can throw
jump
some
in?
additional context like that driver's license. The criminals use it to cash bad checks. So when that check
Right.
bounces, it's your identity associated with it. And Tim kind of alluded to it, but we see in the upper left-hand corner, criminal and character. This is something that's real, but criminals will carry false identities for them, but it's maybe your identity. So when they get arrested, they present your identification And now you're associated with that crime when they get released on bail or whatever it might be. And then they try to get, the repercussions of that. Another one, children. Children are ignored. We're not paying attention to, what's going on. We're not looking at their credit report. We're not trying to pull out a loan or open up a bank account that might alert you to something. So criminals will prey on children to do the same thing as they do to adults. Open up bank accounts, create a loan, file for government benefits. I think that's kind of, and then the financial, obviously that's just the obvious, but this happens all the time. Filing for false credit cards, all that information gets mailed to a different mailbox. So unless you have something in place that is detecting that, it's going to go on for a while until it comes back to you, or a loan, or opening up a business in your name. And I think that's relevant to everybody on the call here. We all have a small business. We can't afford to have another business that's fraudulent opened up in our name.
Yep. So ask yourself, have you or your business ever worried about being a victim of identity theft? Had your personal information at risk? Lost your wallet? Feared for the security of medical information, and worried about entering personal information online? So what are some of the impacts? And Brent's kind of talked about a little bit, but some of the impacts of having identity theft could be securing a loan, being harassed from debt collectors on debts they do not own. I get those phone calls every so often where somebody gets a letter in the mail and says, I just actually had our receptionist here at the office center. She got she actually got a phone call, and it was about her Herberger's account. Well, Herberger's is probably closed and went bankrupt 3-4 years ago. And, but she was going to call them back because she thinks she does owe them money. But they're saying they owe her $4,000. So, so you're going to get this stuff all the time. Possible arrest for criminals, crimes committed by an identity theft, red flags on background checks, difficulty focusing on work or your business, and possibly loss of clients. So what can a thief do with your personal information? Open a bank account, write bad checks. Brent just talked about that. Open new credit cards or loans. Obtain a cell phone. So this is an interesting one. I have a niece, her husband, his mother actually took his identity and bought a cell phone and the plan. In 6 months, closed it down. Well, we all kind of know once we sign up for those, at that time you committed to a year. So over a period of time, they came after him with the bill, all the money that he owed them. I think he was in his early 20s, ruined his credit. For 7 years, it took him to go in and work that to restore it. So just something simple like that can ruin your credit and ruin your reputation. Open new utility accounts in your name, phone, electric, and gas. That's why they go through your mailbox. They take those things and change the address. They can actually go in and change your mail to be mailed to them. Steal your tax return, tax refund. Get medical care. Use information in the event of arrest or court action.
So Tim, I would add to that, so in the incidents that we did with Blue Team Alpha, and this would be with any incident response company, the FBI talks about it, but a term that's out there that businesses are extremely and acutely aware of is called business email compromise. And there's a host of crimes associated with it. But how it relates to the audience of this call is that one of the vulnerabilities is that there is a trusted sender of emails, which might be you corresponding with someone at some business that you are providing fractional services to. You're trusted. And what happens if your email is compromised and you don't know it, and the criminals, the adversary, uses your email to plant a Trojan, right? Attach a document like a Word document that has a macro. And now all of a sudden, when that company goes down, they're going to be able to trace it back through the artifacts that it was your email was the source email. And just think of the reputation, the loss of business that could cause. So having something in place to try and prevent and detect that is very important.
Yep, good point. We're getting to that kind of stuff. So kind of what is the solution? You know, we talked about all the problems, you know, all the things out there. It's overwhelming. So the solution is, so ID Shield. So being able to have unlimited consultation and guidance, real-time monitoring of what matters. So as Brent's talking, as soon as something were to happen or to, you know, be in a place where it's not supposed to be, you need to be notified right away. So the earlier you catch this thing, the least amount of damage that it can cause. But you know, really the issue is for, you know, full service identity restoration. So ID Shield is the only identity theft plan that provides that access to a private investigator. So you will sign over a limited power attorney, and they will go out and make all those phone calls, and they will go out and write all those letters, and they will go out and make all those correspondence to make sure this gets back to pre-theft identity. So stay connected, you know, 24/7 with ID, and we have a mobile app.
So I'll add that. So there are three things with cybersecurity that you can do. And whether you're a business or a person, all these three things apply, and they're well-known terms. So it's prevention, detection, and recovery. All of them are equally important. You cannot 100% prevent identity theft or cybercrime. Even if you disconnected from the internet, your information is somewhere else, so it can still be used against you. So what ID Shield provides, and I've looked at it and why it's highly ranked, it provides those three key components to protecting you.
Yeah. Yep. Good point, Brett. So, you know, and so the other thing is, you know, people go out and look at it. And so there's lots of identity theft plans out there. And so Forbes ranked us #1. And we're one of probably the bigger companies in the employee benefit world. So we work with a lot of companies to really protect their employees too. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, so Brent brought up all those different things. So you want to be able to have a monitor and alert. So we monitor everything that matters. So you can monitor all of this or some of this or as little of this, but all those are the things. Credit score. Why do you want to look at your credit score? If it drops, that could mean something in your credit report got in there that dropped it, and could be identity theft, but you want to know that because I think most of us know our loans, our rating, everything is based on our credit score. We get a better deal with a higher credit score. It monitors 3 bureaus, so it's Social Security, passport, driver's license, your email, your medical ID, passwords, username. It monitors the dark web, so if any of this ever shows up out there, it'll send you an alert. I know my emails have been put on the dark web. It's just, that's why we get all the spam stuff, and so I've had to change it numerous times. Then financial thresholds, so you can, your bank accounts, your savings accounts, your 401k, loans, all those things you want to monitor. I have thresholds in there, so if somebody takes up, so if there's something above and beyond what's normal, I get an alert right away.
So a real world example of how this would have been in play right now. If anybody has an account with TCF or had an account with TCF Bank that changed to Huntington, with that change, all account numbers and all routing numbers were changed. Had you had ID Shield, you would have been alerted to that change. Obviously, that's a change that you authorize and realize, but just think if that had been a criminal and you weren't aware that that account was opened up, and then each day that that account's open, more and more crime can be committed, but being notified at the beginning gets you going and gets you, you can race against the clock to get it taken care of now to prevent what would happen in the future.
Right. And so the other thing ID Shield provides is privacy reputation management score. So you can have all your social media monitored. And if it finds something out there that it detects that it doesn't like, maybe it's inappropriate, it'll give you a more, alert, and you can go out there and remove it, or if somebody puts something out there that you don't know about, it'll let you know. So, everybody's got a very, big social presence. So this is just another thing to help monitor that, to make sure that we get the right stuff out there. So, but I mean, and I talked about this a little bit about it, is a couple things. Complete restoration. So if you ever always looking at identity theft, you want complete restoration. The problem is restoration's not a legal term. So restoration can mean a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, you don't want to do this yourself. So there's $1 million identity fraud protection plan. And then we talked about the licensed private investigators. Do whatever it takes, work as long as it takes to restore your identity to pre-theft status. That's why I sleep better at night. Because if I know this happens, I know to make a phone call. I know I'm going to talk to a private investigator, and they're going to be my best friend until this is fixed. Because those are the stories I've heard. So let's talk about some new features that ID Shield is put in here a month ago. And so this is the kind of stuff that is now preventive. We partner with a company called Trend Micro. And so now you can protect your phones, your laptops, any of your online presence that you're using, iPads, whatever that is. So it's got malware. Well, let's see, highly effective and proactive protection against ever evolving malware infections. So it's going to help make sure that doesn't happen. So the other thing we all have known, this has been told a lot, is make sure your phones and your computers all have VPN. And I think the problem is our phones. We take our phones everywhere, and we hook up to different Wi-Fi's, right? And probably don't pay attention to what we're doing on our phones. And that's a very big way that can open up. But if you have the VPN, and the other thing we were all told is get a password manager. So these are the three things now that are included in the ID Shield. Brent, you want to talk about that a little more?
Yeah, so the top thing there with Trend Micro with that, I mean, what that is, that's detection, and in some cases prevention, because it'll eradicate it, but it's looking for that malware, the banking Trojans, the viruses, that the payload that will be downloaded onto your device and work in the background for nefarious purposes. So Trend Micro is a leading provider of this type of a tool. The VPN proxy, you don't need to know what VPN is, but essentially what it does, it just creates a tunnel from wherever you are through all the internet to where you're trying to go. So if you're communicating with your email or with the company you're working for or a website, if you're in a coffee shop or the airport where some of this stuff, where you can get masking of these Wi-Fi networks, the VPN will take care and provide security. And then lastly, the password manager. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is. So I'm going to give you some stuff here. So right now, and you don't need to know what this is, but the adversary and the criminals use things called rainbow tables. So encoded or protected passwords up to 8 characters with rainbow tables have already been solved. So if you've got an 8-character password, they can solve it in seconds. So number one is you want to have a password that's at least 10 characters or longer. You want to have no duplication of passwords. How are you going to do that? You can't do that even with passphrases and all that stuff. So a password manager will allow you to create, and I recommend a 14-character master password for your password manager, and then enable that to create a password for every single website that's 10 characters and it's a different password for every website that you work with. And another tip I'm going to give you regarding passwords is never, ever, ever, when you get that email and it says you need to reset your password or log in because something's going on, it's Microsoft, it's Amazon, it's PayPal. Never, ever log into a website from the email. If you think it might be real, Amazon or PayPal, let's say, go to the website and log in and then see if there's a message for you.
Yeah,
And that's
Brent,
just a great way-
can I interject something?
Please.
I just got a email that my Google account needs updating its password. I haven't taken any action, of course, but I don't even know how to go into Google to check that it really is valid. You know what I mean? I wouldn't know how to go into Google to check my password because I really don't even know if I know what my Google password is.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, that's a great example though, right? You don't know if it's real or not. And let's assume you knew your password. You just can go to the internet and type in Google login and make sure just don't pick the ad there to the top website that hits there, but go to Google and see if you can log in, but don't do it from that website or from that email.
Right. I know I get these all the time where it's like, you need to update this, you need to update that. And, some are valid and some probably aren't. So I don't do any. And so, even when I change a credit card, we have to update it online, and.
Yep. And the last thing I'll just throw out here, why passwords are so important. I'm going to add one thing that's not on here that you can do it if the service offers you. But anytime you get what they call 2FA, two-factor, or MFA, multi-factor, it means the same thing. Enable it. So for all your banking and any website that allow like your financial services, if they have a token they'll send you, enable that. Right now, cyber insurance for businesses, most companies require a business to authenticate to the insurance company that they have 2FA in place and in practice. And if they can't, they won't even issue the policy. That's how important and why passwords are such a vulnerability for organizations. So again, with 2FA, essentially it's working with something something you have, or something you are. Something you are is like your face with an iPhone. Something you have is that token generator app on your phone. And something is a long password, or a PIN code. But implement those things. So if your password does get compromised, there's one more element of protection. That's it, Tim.
Your wealth of knowledge and information there, Brent. But and so one of the other nice things is, so we're looking at all of that. So we have a dashboard for this. So you can get on here. So that credit dark web, you go in there and put all the stuff you want monitored, your reputation, the anti-malware software you set up right here, VPN password. So we've got a nice dashboard you go to do all this. And this is great because we've never had anything like this. We've had numerous types of, URLs to go do this. This just makes it a lot easier to do it. So let's talk a little bit about how this works. So for an individual plan, the 3 bureau plan, it just covers the member. And so with Trend Micro, you actually covers 3 devices with that. If you get the family plans, $34.95, that's going to cover you. It's going to cover your spouse, any children, domestic partners, any children under 18. And so here's another thing. Nobody else has got this. If you have children over 18, it's going to cover the 18 to 26-year-olds for restoration, consultation on restoration. So it's not going to monitor, but there's a lot of free monitoring programs out there that you can have. So literally it's going to cover something happens. They can call in and talk to somebody about their account. Or if they did have identity theft, it'll actually do a restoration. So a nice little feature for your children in college or on their own And that actually is going to cover 15 devices. So that should cover all the cell phones of your family and all the computers, laptops, all the different devices you may have. So action steps. People go on my website and enroll for your one of those plans. Can ask for a copy. I can send everybody a copy of this presentation so you can look at it a little bit more. Set a time to talk about, about your situation. Maybe want some further information that we did cover today. There's my contact information and questions.
And can you
open it up
just
to-
send me the presentation without me having to go in and ask?
Yeah, I will. I'll send it to everybody on the call.
Okay, great. Yeah, I apologize, but one of my clients called like 5 minutes after your thing started and I had to take the call. So I kind of missed something, but I am